Hello viewers, welcome back to the channel. Today I want to talk about the brand new first level spells in the Secrets of Magic. Now I'm not going to be able to cover all these in one video, there's too many. So expect part 2 soon. Anyway, let's get right into it. Why don't we start with Animal Allies. This is a conjuration spell that is available to primal casters only. It takes 2 actions to cast and has an area of a 5-foot emanation around you. With this spell, you essentially summon ordinary animals to swarm around opponents in the area. They each take 3d4 piercing damage with a basic reflex save. Heightening this spell by 1 spell level increases the damage by 3d4. There are quite a few questions that need to be answered about this spell. The first is, how long does it last? Is it 1 round or is it more? Secondly, does this spell distract opponents? As a GM, I would say yes, because there's literal animals swarming all over them. However, the spell itself does not say that. If this spell lasts for more than 1 round and distracts opponents, then it's a good first level spell. A very good one, in fact. However, if neither of these are true, then it's just a damaging cantrip and isn't that great. At some point, they're gonna have to errata this spell, and when they do, we'll see how it is after that. Biting Words is available to occult casters only. It takes 2 actions to cast and lasts for 1 minute. When you finish casting this spell, and once every turn after that during the spell's duration, you can attack your opponents with your words. These attacks have the attack, concentrate, and linguistic traits. So if you make other attacks before attacking with your words, you are going to take a multiple attack penalty. After you attack with this spell 3 times, the spell ends. When you attack with this spell, make a ranged attack roll against any enemy within 30 feet. These attacks do 2d6 sonic damage on a hit. If you happen to crit, then you do double damage. Heightening this spell by 1 spell level increases the damage by 2d6. Each of these attacks takes a single action. This spell is pretty cool, and it does help against creatures that have weakness to sonic damage, but it's just a damaging spell. If it had a chance to deafen, it'd be better. But occult casters really don't have that many damaging spells, so it's good that they have another one now. Breadcrumbs is an abjuration spell that is available to all casters. It takes 1 minute to cast, has a range of touch, and targets 1 willing creature. The spell lasts for 1 hour. The target leaves behind a glittering trail that lasts for the spell's duration. This spell does not tell you the direction they went or the order of their paths. It merely indicates where the target has moved during the duration of the spell. Heightening this spell to 2nd level increases the duration to 8 hours. Heightening it to 3rd level increases the duration to until your next daily preparations. This spell is great to cast if you think you might lose to some of your party members. It is also really good if you want to follow somebody. But other than that, not that useful. They finally came out with another 1 to 3 action spell. Concordant Choir is available to divine and occult casters. The range is 30 feet, and the targets vary depending on how many actions you use on this spell. No matter how many targets you affect with this spell, they all get a basic fortitude save against it. If you spend 1 action on this spell, you deal 1d4 sonic damage to a single target. If you spend 2 actions on this spell, you deal 2d4 sonic damage to every creature in a 10-foot burst. And if you spend 3 actions on this spell, you deal 2d4 sonic damage to all creatures in a 30-foot emanation. Heightening this spell by 1 spell level increases the damage of the 1 action version by 1d4 and the other versions by 2d4. Unlike Magic Missile and Heal, spending multiple actions on this spell increases the area, not the damage. Therefore, in some ways, it's actually better than Magic Missile. This is because there might be an actual reason for casting this spell with one action or two actions. For example, if you're only going up against one enemy, it's not worth it to cast this spell using two actions or three actions. Second, you might not want to cast this spell at three actions because you might hit your allies. If you want a damaging first level spell, this is a very versatile one and definitely worth taking. Now let's talk about a really good spell for any tank. It is known as Draw Ire. Arcane and Occult casters have access to this spell. This spell takes two actions to cast, has a range of 120 feet, and targets one creature. Its duration is 1 minute. You deal 1d10 mental damage to the target, and the target takes a -1 penalty to attack rolls against creatures other than you. The target gets a will saving throw in order to reduce or eliminate the effects. On a critical success, the target is unaffected. Nothing happens. On a success, the target takes half damage, but it also takes the full penalty. However, the spell ends at the end of their next turn. On a failed saving throw, the target takes full damage and the penalty. If the target critically fails their save, they take double damage and the penalty increases to -2. Heightening this spell by 1 spell level increases the damage by 1d10. This spell is pretty amazing, especially if you can get this spell on a champion. But even on a Sparkling Targe Magus, this will be good. If you're a tanky melee combatant that can cast spells from the Arcane or Occult list, pick this one up. Echoing Weapons is another interesting damaging spell. Arcane, Divine, and Occult spellcasters have access to it. It takes 2 actions to cast and is a touch spell targeting one weapon. The duration of this spell is 1 minute. If a creature is wielding that weapon at the end of their turn, then one creature adjacent to the wielder takes sonic damage. This sonic damage is equal to the number of successful strikes the wielder made with that weapon this turn. So if you hit with that weapon twice, a creature that is adjacent to you takes 2 sonic damage. At first level, this spell has a maximum of 4 extra damage. However, heightening this spell by 1 spell level increases the damage by 1 per strike, and the maximum by 4. The damage from this spell can add up really quickly, especially since it lasts for 1 minute. It's also a really good way to give melee types some extra damage. It's also a great way to keep enemies away from martial ranged fighters. Overall, pretty good spell. Gravitational Pull is another 1 to 3 action spell, and it's great for tanks. Arcane and Occult casters can cast this spell. It has a range of 30 feet, and its targets depend on how many actions you use on this spell. When you cast this spell, the target or targets is pulled towards you 10 feet unless they succeed on a Fortitude saving throw. If they critically fail their saving throw, they are also knocked prone. If you spend 1 action on this spell, the spell targets 1 creature. If you spend 2 actions on this spell, then it still only targets 1 creature, but that creature is pulled 20 feet instead of 10. If you spend 3 actions casting this spell, then you can target up to 5 creatures. Again, fantastic spell for a champion or any tank. Imagine a boss fight where you pull every minion towards you. And if you target minions with this spell, they're probably going to crit fail their save, so they'll be knocked prone as well. Then you can focus on the minions while the rest of the party deals with the actual boss. I have to say, did not expect there to be so many good teamwork first level spells. And we're not even halfway done with them. You can spend anywhere from 2 actions to a full 2 rounds casting Horizon Thunder Sphere. This spell is available to Arcane and Primal casters and targets 1 creature. When you cast this spell, make a ranged spell attack roll against your target's AC. If you hit, you deal 3d6 electricity damage. On a critical hit, you deal double damage and the target is dazzled for 1 round. If you spend 2 actions on this spell, then it has a range of 30 feet. If you spend 3 actions on this spell, then the spell has a range of 60 feet and deals half damage on a failed spell attack roll, but not a critical failure. If you spend 3 actions casting this spell, you can avoid finishing the spell and instead spend another 3 actions on your next turn finishing it. If you do, then whether you hit or miss, you can deal 2d6 electricity damage to every other creature in a 10-foot emanation around your target, with a basic reflex save. Also, for the next minute, you deal 1 electricity damage to any creatures that try to grab you, hit you with an unarmed strike, or hit you with a non-reach melee weapon. Heightening this spell by 1 spell level increases the initial and the burst damage by 2d6. It also increases the damage that creatures take if they grabbed you or attacked you with any melee weapon or unarmed strike by 1. This is another very versatile damaging spell. However, in most cases, it's probably not going to be worth it to spend a whole 2 rounds on this spell. You could probably do more damage by doing other things. Teamwork-wise, this is just a damaging spell. It's not that great. Juvenile Companion just isn't that good of a spell. It is available to primal casters only. It takes 2 actions to cast and is a touch spell that can target your companion. You transform your animal companion into its juvenile form, such as a cub or a kitten. It becomes tiny, if it was larger, and its reach is reduced to 0 feet. All of its speeds are halved, to a minimum of 5 feet. It also gains weakness 5 to physical damage. Other than that, its abilities and stats are unchanged. If your animal companion uses a hostile action, this spell ends. This spell cannot be used on a companion that doesn't have a juvenile form. This spell lasts for 10 minutes. Heightening this spell to 2nd level increases the duration to 1 hour. This spell is really more of a flavor thing. Depending on your GM, you may be able to get some sympathy in social situations because you have a cute little animal companion. But other than that, there really isn't much use to this spell. You may be thinking, oh, well now I can sneak my animal companion into places that I normally wouldn't be able to take it in. That is true. However, Pet Cache is a much better way of doing that than this spell. Lose the Path is available to occult and primal casters. You cast this spell as a reaction with the trigger, a creature within 60 feet makes a stride. The target must make a will saving throw. On a successful save, the target is unaffected. If the target fails their save, then they treat all squares during their stride as difficult terrain. On a critical failure, the target treats all squares as difficult terrain, but you also get to control where they move during that stride. That's right, you heard me. If they crit fail, you get to decide where they move. You just can't move them into hazardous terrain or to a place where they can't stand. This spell is insane. On a critical failure, if you move them to the correct spot, you could literally waste their entire turn. Plus, even on a failure, they're considered to be in difficult terrain for that stride. This spell should not be a 1st level spell. I mean, granted, you're not going to be able to use it on something your level and have them crit fail. I mean, yes, you can only use this spell on a creature once per hour, but that might be enough. Overall, excellent spell. Consider taking if you're a primal or occult caster. Alright, time for the last spell of this video. Mud Pit. This spell is available to arcane and primal casters and takes 3 actions to cast. With this spell, you essentially create a 15-foot burst of difficult terrain within 60 feet for 1 minute. Simple, but can be very effective. Which, if you've seen my video on spells with the local disaster tour guide, you know that enemies wasting actions is always good. And that's going to wrap up this video. If you enjoyed the video, leave a like and subscribe to the channel. You can also check out my Facebook and my Twitter. But if you really want to support me, you can check out my Patreon page. Links are in the description. I will be continuing my Secrets of Magic coverage in the coming weeks, so look out for those videos. And until next time, remember, teamwork is vital.